This week, my oldest daughter, Brooklyn, turned 18 years old. So you know what that means. Parenting is completely done with this one, and I can fully focus on the next three. Not true. There's probably plenty of parenting left, but to celebrate, I invited Brooklyn to come on today and give us some perspective of what it's like being an adult now that she has 2 full days under her belt. Hey, my name's Jay Holland, and this is Let's Parent on Purpose. This is a podcast to help you thrive and not just survive your parenting years. Each week, I'll bring you an insight or an interview designed to help strengthen your marriage, your parenting, or your personal walk with Jesus. I've also created a fun family conversation ebook that I would love to give you for free. If you'd like that, you just text the word THINGS, THINGS, to 66866. And if you like the podcast, subscribe, share it with your friends, or go to letsparentonpurpose.com to find out about past episodes. Hey, I have celebrated many times on here before, those of you who support the program through Patreon, and I wanted to just give a really big thank you because this is a significant upgrade week. This week, I got to unbox my new microphone, new Rode Procaster soundboard system, which looks really cool. I wish you could see it right now. There's a bunch of different colored lights on it, which makes everything exciting. So those of you who've been supporting the podcast through Patreon, I just want you to know I have been using the money. I've been putting it to good use, and I want to say thank you. It's a celebration week in my house anyway, because this week, my firstborn child, Brooklyn, turned 18 years old. We celebrated by kicking her out of the house, giving her a pack of lottery tickets, and letting her go buy her own cigarettes for good luck. Actually, we didn't do any of that, but we did celebrate, and we had ice cream because that's how the Holland celebrate everything. A couple of years ago, I had Brooklyn on for a podcast episode when we talked about dating. She was an expert at that then, just as much as she's an expert at being an adult now, because by that time, she had never had a boyfriend. So I did invite Brooklyn to come on today. Love her very much. Super proud of her, and wanted to just hear some insight. We're going to just have a conversation of what it's like growing up, what it's like going through trauma as a child and trauma as a teenager, what it's like having to have a pastor's, be a pastor's kid, and just some really sweet insights that you're going to enjoy because my daughter is delightful. So, Brooklyn, welcome back to Let's Parent on Purpose.
Thank you. I'm a little bit nervous. I'm not going to lie. I don't know why.
That's all right. As long as you don't pop your toes,
I'm trying.
We'll be okay. So,
try not to fidget in any of my normal patterns.
Yeah. So, what a special week. Hey, do you remember back when you were born?
No, can't say I do.
I do. It was such a great day. You took a long time coming out, and then you came out, and it's been all smooth sailing since then. But you just turned 18. What's happening in your life right now? So, like, what are your plans? This has been a big, weird season for you because just like everybody else, you're experiencing COVID, except you happen to experience it during graduation, during what was supposed to be prom, and everything else that normally happens at the end of a senior year. So, what are your plans as you walk forward here?
It's definitely been a very, very odd year all around, very good year. Even though there's been a lot going on, I've really enjoyed and really valued what I have gotten to do. And I feel like even though it might have not looked like I originally thought my senior year would go, it definitely has been just as valuable, if not more so. And I'm really thankful for the opportunities that I've gotten. Right now, I'm working a lot, working full time. I'm planning on going to school in the fall as long as I'm able to attend in-person classes. I'm really not good with self-motivating deadlines. That's why homeschooling was not a super successful journey. It's why I do really well in public school. And so I don't really want to go back if I know that I'm not going to be on top of it the way I want to be, because I want to continue setting myself up for success. And then I'm planning on continuing to work. And then I'm also going to be moving into an apartment with a roommate that I met through work, who I really just enjoy and I'm really thankful for. And I'm really excited about this upcoming season.
And where you're working. They might as well be an advertiser of this program anyway. So
I'm working at the Chick-fil-A of Stewart. I'm not going to lie. It's probably one of the best ones in the whole chain.
Yeah.
Really, really thankful to be where I'm at.
Yeah. And if you're listening, actually I had, not only have I had Brooklyn on the podcast before, it's one called A Dad's Thoughts on Dating. And so we'll link that. Brooklyn had great thoughts that I'd given her on dating. But also Nathan Buchanan, the operator of this local Chick-fil-A, brilliant guy, loves Jesus, and he was on one of the most popular Let's Parent on Purpose episodes we ever had. I'm going to link it in the show notes, and I think it was titled Chick-fil-A Can Teach Us a Lot About Parenting. So I just wanted to, there's a few questions that I want to ask you, Brooklyn. Your experience is unique. Everybody's experience is unique. So on one hand, somebody could look at your life and say, pastor's kid, lives in a nice house. We even have a swimming pool down here in Florida. Graduated, has her associate's degree already, has a job. Everything. Got a couple brothers and a little sister. You've lived such a bubbled, perfect life. How can anybody relate to you? So that could be if somebody just met you and didn't know your story. That could be the story that they think about you. But when you think back at your life, what are the significant events in your life? If you were to try to pace through maybe the 5 or 6 most significant things in your life, we might not get to 5. I don't know.
Are we starting on the 5 or 6 most traumatic, or the 5 or 6 most the best ones? Well,
let's combine them, because one of the things I'll tell you, just as a parent, you mentioned traumatic already. All of us want kids that have high character. All of us want kids that are helpful to the world. I don't know any parent that doesn't want that. And yet all of us parents really want to shelter our children from suffering. And so when you think of the things, let's just walk through this, the things that have made the major impacts on developing who you are, and it could be traumatic or it could be wonderful. Let's just try to think through some of those things.
Okay. I think they definitely start out very early. My mom passed when I was 3. And obviously that entirely from the inside out changes just the entire course of my life. Moving to Nashville from West Virginia when I was 3, right after she died. And then you marrying Emily, who this will be the only time I will ever call her Emily, but just for context so that people listening know, Emily came into our life as technically a stepmom, but absolutely welcomed me into her heart and into her life and adopted me as her daughter from the very beginning. And I've never thought of her as anything other than my mom. And so her coming into our home and having a mom and having someone who just unconditionally loved me was a very, very foundational and wonderful thing. Moving from Nashville to Florida was also a very wonderful thing, even though I was absolutely angry about it at the time because I was afraid of crabs, and I was convinced that if we moved to Florida, the crabs would come and find me and attack me.
So we visited my wife Emily, her family all lives down here, and Emily used to live down here. And one of the times that we came down to visit, I think we were here for a weekend in May. And for some reason, these blue crabs
we came during a tropical storm.
Was that what it was?
That was the reason.
Okay,
there was a tropical storm.
Well, these blue crabs were everywhere, like all over the road, all over the sidewalk. I don't think I've ever seen it since. We've lived down here 12 years now, and I've never seen an infestation of crabs. It's like if you think about an infestation of cockroaches in your house, it was like the world was infested with crabs, which are just giant cockroaches. You open the door
and you step and you're crunching on a crab because there's so many they can't even scurry out of the way in time. It was horrible. I was completely traumatized, did not want to move to Florida.
So it wasn't like I'm going to miss my friends, which you were going to miss. It wasn't, we just moved again. It was the big thing on your mind was the crabs.
100%.
All right. Well, the Lord has protected you from crabs. Have you been bitten by a crab since you've been down here?
I have not. I have also really, really carefully avoided them. But.
Okay. Maybe that's why. So now we've moved down to Florida.
Moved down to Florida. Plugging into Covenant, we did that very early into being here. But I think that there was nowhere else that the Lord could have put us that would have been as good for our family, especially as developments continued. So over the course of those couple of years, Elijah and Micah were born. I really loved being a big sister. I still do. I love having little siblings. And I feel really close to all of them, even though they're a lot younger than me. So that was very good.
And I'm thinking of that. You're an amazing big sister. And I was looking on my phone this week for pictures of you as a baby, but it turns out I didn't have a cell phone when you were a baby. Somewhere there's a Sony Hi8 camera that's got film of you as a baby. But I think I must have got my phone right around Elijah's first birthday. My first phone that now I have 70 million pictures on my phone. Because you were in there being the big sister and taking care of him, and he was smashing everything along the way. So, but yeah, you were awesome.
That hasn't changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the boys being born, and then when I was in third grade, we moved from Pinewood, the school Pinewood. I moved from there to Seawind because I was joining the gifted program, and we moved to Hope Sound. So it was just a convenient change. That was, I think a good thing. I think at the time it was a good thing. Over the next couple years and the way I grew up, I think it can be hard to grow up with friends that you're kind of with the same 15 people for the next 8 years of your life. And if you get a good group of those people, then you're set. But if not, it can become a very, very hurtful and very toxic place to be. And that didn't come till middle school. But I think it was a good thing. I still think that knowing what I know now, I wouldn't have wanted to do anything differently, because I don't think that I would be who I am if I had not grown up with those people. And I had amazing teachers that took really good care of me. I learned a lot. But that was around the time that we started fostering, was when I was in third grade. And fostering has been, I think, probably over my development and over my life, maybe been the most mixed thing that we've ever been a part of. I would never want to go back and stop us. I would never, ever, ever want to change what we've done. But it has been, there have been a lot of heartaches with it.
I think it's fair to say this. There are many times when we would have wanted to stop it. In the moment, there are many that were, if somebody could pop into a particular moment and say, would you undo all of this? You'd say yes. But with a little distance and a little perspective, still say, yes, this is the hardest thing that we've done, but the best thing, the thing that, we're going to stand before Jesus and have gotten some kind of reward for really putting ourselves out. And it's not just mom and dad. Absolutely. It has transformed the experience of all of the kids in our home, and not all for good. Not, there's a lot of sacrifice and a lot of heartache and loss that goes in there. So, I have always, and probably will always, been wired very, very emotionally. I'm very quick to attach to people and to things that I care about. I don't really do halfway commitment on things. It's either I'm all in or I'm all out. And I think foster care at that age was a very hard thing for me, because it was very confusing to me bringing in kids. And it wasn't like you guys ever were hey, just so you know, we're keeping this kid forever and ever and ever. That was never the understanding. It wasn't that I wasn't told what was going on, and it wasn't that I couldn't reiterate what was going on. But there was a part of my heart always that with every kid that came in, I immediately bonded as a sibling. And every single time a placement fell through, or a kid had to leave, it felt to me like if you had taken Elijah, or if you had taken Micah, it was the exact same thing in my heart. And they tend to happen fast.
Yeah.
When a child is ready to be reunited or moved or something like that. Most of ours happened, it seemed within 24 hours notice. And so it can be, as a matter of fact, I think you were out of town for one of them.
I came back the night that he was leaving.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was very hard. We had, I've counted up, 8 placements over the course of fostering before we ended up with Hannah. And all of them, like, there were varying times, varying levels of connection. But there was one in particular that I still think she's my sister. Like, she's still absolutely, and I think will forever be, no matter how long I go between hearing from her or seeing her. Tia is always going to be my sister and be a part of my family. Am I not allowed to say her name?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. She was the only placement that we ever had that was really close to my age. And like immediately within the first 10 minutes of being, in the car, like I knew she was a firecracker, but, I have loved her more than almost anyone else in my life. And, am very, very thankful for the time with her. She was also our longest placement before Hannah. So her leaving was, I think, by far the hardest. Especially because I didn't really think she was going to leave.
Yeah. And
then it happened really quickly.
And I remember at least a couple of years ago when you gave your testimony in youth group, you said that her leaving felt like you felt it even more than, at least at that point in your life, it felt like a bigger thing than when your mom passed away.
Yeah.
And
it still does. Like, I still feel it. Like I'm talking about it now and I'm getting choked up and trying to like stay calm because I don't want to cry on the microphone.
Yeah.
But
and it's not because you weren't connected. Your mom, your birth mom, Christy, was very connected in your life. But you were young, so you really don't have a lot of memories.
Yeah.
Aside from pictures and little videos and stuff.
Yeah, I think it's been very interesting because people hear like, oh, you lost your mom, and they think like, oh my goodness, like poor thing, like that must be so hard. You must miss her so much. And I mean, that's absolutely true, but also like I was so young that I think the things that have been hard aren't necessarily like what I remember and miss, but more what I don't remember and wish I had gotten to have.
Yeah.
Like, every time someone tells me like, oh my goodness, when you say that, you sound just like her. Like you have the same heart and you have the same like tendency towards, emotions and wiring. And I really wish that I had like gotten to know that person.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because, I used to think she was faking sometimes in her like extreme reaction to things. And then we had you, and as you got over, like, oh man, maybe I should have had more grace back then. Cause, this is apparently not a learned behavior. But yeah, but I also think like it's encouraging because as a parent would think about what would happen, like if a parent dies to a child, it is awful and it is devastating. And I can tell you, like, through that time period, it took a lot of recovery. I mean, you used to listen to her songs for years, every night before you went to sleep. We had a little soundtrack of her singing at church. It was very hard and very devastating, but it doesn't even feel like the major event in your life at this point. And that's pretty remarkable to say. But
to be fair,
right, we've had a couple of
runner-ups are pretty pretty up there.
All right, well, keep moving with your
we'll keep moving. So fostering was like a joy and a blessing and heartache, and I think developed a lot of my character and a lot of why I care about what I do. And a lot of the things that I've been the most passionate about, I can absolutely trace back to that example in my home. And getting to go on mission trips, like how I have like a pretty unique way of relating to people who are in broken homes and who are hurt. And I do think that my trauma, including the ones that I haven't gotten to yet, have uniquely equipped me to reach people that I can connect with a lot of different points.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also a lot of good ones. I have a very good melting pot of experience.
Yeah.
But, okay. So after, Tia left, we got Hannah a little bit before, actually. Hannah and Tia were in our home at the same time. Tia left, Hannah stayed. When we got Hannah, You know what? It's really funny. I remember the day you came and asked me what you thought, and you were like, "So we're thinking about taking in another girl." It was someone that we had known through another family at our church who had been involved fostering her. And I remember like having this super enthusiastic response, like super excited about getting a little sister. Take her. Yeah. It's like, you can come in and tell me that you were like adopting a kid with green skin and like monster horns and fangs. And I'd be like, okay, cool. And I think I remember saying that, like almost that exact thing. And then looking back at that conversation, I wonder if it would have gone differently. But, so when we got Hannah, obviously she was like this cute little cuddly baby, and I'd always wanted a little sister to help dress up and play with. And then she started getting older, and I shared a room with her. And I think I was in maybe 6th grade when she started showing signs of mental illness. But not as extreme then. Like back then it was like, oh my goodness, this is like a really rowdy kid. And I may think maybe something is a little off, but we didn't really know. I was homeschooled in 6th grade because middle school is scary. And that turned out to be very true. But I was homeschooled through 6th grade and half of 7th grade. So in 6th grade was when Hannah was kind of starting to get worse. And I really wanted a dog. I'd been working on my parents for years about getting another dog. And so when I was in 6th grade, Mom and Dad came to me and they said, hey, we have this little puppy. You're going to go fly up to West Virginia, visit your family up there, and then bring the puppy back with you on the way home. So I'm up there, and it was like 2-3 days into the trip, and I called you guys to like talk and see how you're doing. And I remember like being on the other end of the phone and feeling like Mom's voice sounded weird, like she wasn't saying something, or like I just remember she seemed off. Something seemed off. And she said that Elijah had pneumonia. They'd had to take him to the ER. Something about our insurance wasn't working. I didn't really know what they were talking about because I was in 6th grade. But they ended up in the ER with Elijah, and that they were like getting some blood work done. They were going to get his antibiotics, go home. Everything was fine. He was doing okay. Mom put him on the phone. He said hi. He sounded fine. He just had a cough. So like I hung up. That was the end of that. And then you guys called me back like later that day, and I think it was you that I talked to that time. And I knew your voice sounded wrong. Like you sounded like you'd been crying. But like I asked, like, are you okay? And you said that like you were okay. And that something was wrong with Elijah's blood work. They weren't really sure what it was. He was okay. He was okay. And that they were taking him to the hospital for more tests. And then you asked me to pass the phone to my grandmother, and so I did. And then I went back downstairs to play with my Little Ponies, and I came back up, and like my grandma had been crying, and everyone in the room was like really, really quiet, and they all treated me really weird. And my aunt came up to me, and she was like, hey, are you doing okay? Is Elijah doing okay? And I was like, yeah, he's fine. I'm fine. Everything's good. And then there were a couple other things over the course of the week that, like, looking back, I just didn't know what they meant. But like my mama would show me like a post on Facebook, and someone had posted something about Elijah being so brave. And I was like, they're making a really big deal out of this. And I got back in town, and I'm carrying my cute little puppy, and, Dad and my uncle came up to the airport to pick me up, and instead of riding in the front seat, Dad got in the back with me, and I thought he was coming into the back to look at the puppy. But as we were driving back, that was when he told me that Elijah had been diagnosed with leukemia, and that kind of like shattered my world. I remember for the next like 24 hours feeling like nothing was real. Like nothing I was doing was real. I had to be asleep. I was going to wake up. But I didn't wake up. and I didn't get to go see Elijah until the next day. And I remember having to put a mask on to come into the room with him, which everyone's making a big deal about masks right now, but there are much worse times that you could wear a mask. I remember putting on a mask so that I could go sit with him and like just laying with him, and I fell asleep and took a nap together. And like that started the next 4 years of life, and especially that first year, where everything was different. Mom and dad were never home. Like they would both be in the hospital, and I was homeschooled, so they would both be in the hospital until around 8, and then one of them would come home and spend the night with us, and one of them would stay there. So all of us, like, we would spend time at other people's houses. I had a couple families at the church that I stayed with a lot. It was really lonely. And you know what? Once we got past that first that first month, I was really scared that Elijah was going to die. But after that first month, like, I wasn't really that worried. Part of it was because he was taking steroids, and when he gets steroids, he gets very emotional and angry. And there was like a long time where he just really didn't like me when he was on steroids. And like, I would know exactly when he had started. Like it was every couple weeks he would start them, and I would know, even if no one had told me, oh, he started steroids today. He doesn't like me today. Which is now him and I are so close, but it was really hard for a long time. Especially because like nobody wants to hear that you're fighting with your brother who has cancer. Like you can't really win that argument. But we adopted Hannah the week that Elijah was diagnosed.
It was about 30 days into it.
It felt fast.
Yeah, time all weaves together.
Yeah, so we adopted Hannah. Elijah FaceTimed from the courtroom so that he could be there. And then, like, right after we adopted her was when it really, really got bad. And, like, we could really tell that something was wrong. She just kind of started to descend into, like, it felt like absolute madness. Like, I was sharing a room with her, and you never knew what it was that was going to set her off. I vividly remember there was one day that she decided that her cup lid was the wrong color, and she went out of her mind for 4 hours, screaming and kicking the wall. And we had bunk beds, so like I would go in and sleep with Micah and Elijah because Hannah was absolutely insane. And like I was 12.
Yeah.
That was really hard. And it was really lonely. So halfway through 7th grade, I was homeschooled for the first half because I wanted to be with Elijah, and Mom and Dad weren't going to argue that I wanted to be near my brother who we weren't sure was going to live. So I was homeschooled for that first part. But like I said at the very beginning, like I absolutely stink with time management. I absolutely stink with having to discipline my own deadlines and stuff. So I ended up attending Murray Middle, which was just not a good place for me. It wasn't, I don't even think it was the school. Like the school is fine. I think if you go there, you can learn. It can be good, but it was not a good environment with the classes I got put in, with the people I got put in with. There was a lot of really manipulative behavior. I was not super emotionally stable at the time. There was a lot going on in my life. And I've struggled a lot with insecurity, that I don't really know exactly where it stems from, but I have, very severely struggled with insecurity. And like 8th grade, 9th grade was absolutely like the peak time of that, where like it was so hard because people tell you, like, if you're thinking about being insecure, like you're being selfish because like you're thinking about yourself, or like you're hating what God created. And like, it was not a selfish thing. It was not something I wanted, but I would not be able to think of a single thing I liked about myself. And like that went on for a really, really long time. And I think it was absolutely intensified by just chaos in my life. But it was really hard. And
yeah. And really you thought about being a psychology major,
Yeah.
Understanding brain development, that the two peak times of brain wiring are 0 to 4, and then right as you hit puberty. And 0 to 4, your mom gets sick, your mom dies, your dad moves, your dad remarries, and beginning of puberty, you are in a room with an unstable little girl and across the hallway from a potentially dying brother, unless he was in the hospital. So, yeah, I think that it's not challenging to trace where the insecurities came from, but I know as a parent, it was so debilitating and frustrating to think that there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can say. We're doing everything that we can to make a house of love and for the love to be unconditional. But when the insecurities go so high, saying, "Hey, you didn't vacuum," feels like conditional love. And so, we've gotten to wrestle through quite a bit of those things. I think you and I have talked about, like, how did that stop? And I think this is important for parents to hear as well. Not that, like, all of your insecurities have stopped, but you have definitely become way more self-confident, and at least your stability feels a little more than just surface level right now. And by the way, like, everybody who would have known you during this time would have thought you're totally put together. You can put on the face, you can do all of that, which makes it even harder to believe you.
Yeah.
I'm fine. But you've definitely become way more secure. Would you agree? You've become more secure and self-confident?
Absolutely.
So what did it?
I do think that there were a couple things. I think, first of all, life stabled out a little bit. I got my own room because we moved. That helped. Elijah was no longer in chemo treatment all the time. That helped. Mom and Dad were home more. That helped. And then, honestly, I think starting work. I think that like was a pivotal moment, because I don't really know how to explain it, but I do know that there has been a part of me, like, my whole life that's worried that, like, I wasn't good enough. And, like, all of a sudden having something that I was, like, actually good at, and, like, people met me and liked me. I think that was part of it. I have very much lived in a bubble, and it's been wonderful. Like, I really, really love where I'm at. But I grew up around, like, pretty much the same 20 people, give or take, like, 3 have been a part of my youth group and elementary experience, and have been my core group of friends from, like, 7 to now. And, like, it was a very, and I didn't enjoy, like, public school was very hard for me. So moving to Clark and starting work, I think, were the 2 things that happened, like, around the same time. And and
Clark was a charter school. It was still public school, but a charter school, much smaller. Yeah.
Teachers actually, like, really. Here's my quick little advertisement for Clark. Clark was absolutely the best thing that I possibly could have done. I have not met a single person who has attended it who hasn't said that they absolutely loved it. It's a little charter school in Stuart, Florida. It's a 250 student cap with a lottery system to get in. If you apply, you have as good a chance of getting in as anyone else. It doesn't matter if you have a 2.5 GPA or a 4.0. As long as you have the minimum.
Yeah, for those of you listening in Australia or the Philippines, sorry. You have to live in Martin County, Florida for that.
But it absolutely it really did change my life. It's been so beautiful. And I graduated a semester early from high school with my associate's degree in college and my diploma. So that's my advertisement for Clark. But yeah, I think working and Clark kind of gave me this new atmosphere to be able to figure out, like, who am I outside of who I've always been? And turns out not that different, but it was good to get to decide that on my own.
Yeah. That's, I think, for pastors' kids, and really any family that's super immersed in the church, one of the concerns that we always have is, we've done everything I can to make it easy for my kids to want to love Jesus. And sometimes you get afraid that I've done everything that I can to make it easy for my kids to want to love Jesus. So it's the least effort decision to go with the stream around them. And so wondering, like, is it real? What's going to happen as they get a little older and begin to exert their independence and don't have to do everything just to please or submit to mom and dad. And so, like, that's been exciting for us to see that as you go get other friends, they're good friends. They're friends that love the Lord. And, we're thrilled that you get to stay around locally. I'm glad that you found, but it's also weird because if 2 years ago you would have, gone in a time machine back, this is July. If 2 years ago in July, you would have gone to, Brooklyn and said, hey, you're not going to go to Florida State and major in psychology. You're going to stay in Stewart, go to IRSC and work at a fast food place.
Well, when you say it like that,
that's
doesn't
the worst
really
version.
sound
Yeah.
like I made a
You would have been like,
decision.
what did I do wrong? But no, you're not at a fast food place. You're at Chick-fil-A. You're at a food service place, debt-free, loading, piling your bank account up. But it's like the dreams that you have change. And
I think that absolutely is because I feel like I figured out at least a little bit who I am.
Right.
And I do think that who I am and who I always was is really not that far apart. But it's been very, and you know what? I've never really felt like, there have never been a time in my life that I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm the pastor's kid. Like, there's so much pressure, but it is pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't have really thought about it as much. Like, I couldn't have articulated at any point, but I am very much the community kid.
Uh-huh.
Like, everybody has expectations for me. People will stop me on a Sunday that I haven't talked to in 3 months and tell me why I should change my career plans in a 10-minute conversation and like fully expect me to agree and like follow their opinion, or like come up to me and be like, you should marry this person. And like, that's been a very, very interesting experience. Like, and it's not just for the pastor's kids. It is for anyone who's grown up, super involved. So like, you absolutely have eyes on you. Mm-hmm. And,
but you know what, like, that's pressure, but there are certain pressures that are really good because we realize that everybody has pressure in this world. Every single person has pressure. And I remember, I don't even think I think this was like in a good stage. This wasn't like I'm chewing you out for something. Maybe I was using some other pastor's kid as an observation at this point, but just saying, look, I know that there's some pressure, that it's hard sometimes being the pastor's kid, but it's also really hard to be the kid of divorced parents. It's really hard to be the kid of an addict. It's hard when your parents don't care at all about your spiritual life. So yes, knowing that and I know that when I told you that, it probably like, Dad, I don't want to hear this. This doesn't help. But
well, no, like I have never, except when you've asked about it, even really given much thought to the fact that I'm a pastor's kid and not just a normal kid.
Yeah,
like,
well, and that's a testimony to this church too. So thank God that this church lets pastors' kids be kids, not pastors' kids.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the pastor. Like, nobody's looking to me for their spiritual guidance except for what I would hope that everyone is looking to their friends for spiritual guidance. And like, I want to be a friend that people can reach out to for that. But I'm absolutely not like in another league as far as wisdom or anything like that. And I definitely think that I also have been blessed to be surrounded by a class of kids who, the kids in my grade have pretty much all stuck through the end. Mm-hmm. And so we're all very connected, very plugged in, and no one of us is in the spotlight. I've never really, that's never been a specific struggle of mine.
Yeah. So as you, now that you're an adult, it's been a day and a half of being an adult. Do you feel like an adult now?
Oh no, definitely not. I remember being like right about to turn 16, and this is a really little example, but like right about to turn 16, and I had just gotten to Clark, and all my friends at Clark, we were all planning a road trip for when we turned 18. And like, I remember thinking, oh, by the time I'm 18, I will be so grown up and like, I'll be ready to like live on my own. And obviously I'll have a roommate, but like, I'll be ready for all this stuff. And then you guys went out of town this weekend and I got scared that someone was breaking into my house the one night that I had to stay by myself. So maybe I'm a little more of a kid than I thought I was going to be.
So what are the areas that you feel like, that you, still are not fully formed, that you still probably need some parental guidance or other guidance in?
I think obviously I don't ever want to say I'm fully spiritually formed. I think I'm on a path that I'm really happy with, and I think I know where I'm going. But I don't think that's ever something that you're fully formed. But outside of that, because obviously you know that I'm never going to fully be. Anyway, aside from that, I think probably just like practical responsibilities with like keeping my room organized and like, taking my classes and having to make my own doctor's appointments, things like that are just like little areas of adulting that are very, very foreign to me. But I'm also really excited. Like, I'm very excited to get to do that. And then I think just in general, I'm very used to all my decisions, like not being made for me, but they're pretty clear. The way that I'm going. And I think from this point on, like, it is definitely a wider, range of options and like career options and friends and location. And I do think that that's like kind of intimidating to me because I'm used to living in my little corner, Stuart, Florida.
Yeah. I know that I had a light bulb moment a couple of years ago as 18 was screaming at us, of just realizing like, I don't have to panic because 18 is not the finish line. It's a major mile marker, but it's not the finish line of, oh my gosh, if my child isn't fully formed by 18, there's no hope for them. And I've really screwed up and I failed as a parent. So being able to back off that was really helpful for me. And also like just realizing, you know, my wife and I have we're kind of thinking through some pretty major decision stuff, and we still consult our parents. Thank God that they're still alive, but I value their opinion. And, you know, my parents are in their 70s and hers are probably 42 or, well, I'm 43. So her parents are older than that. But, the 18 is not the finish line, that parenting really is a marathon, not a sprint. And that, I think that's just another thing to encourage in our kids is, I can recognize you as an adult. I can affirm that. I can lay more responsibility on you. Hopefully I have been taking the reins off of you more and more as you approach that. But also, there is no expectation that you know how to do everything at this point. There's no expectation that you'll get it all right at this point. And we still get to be there to coach and guide and warn, but not control. And that's actually really freeing for me. And it's a fun development in the parenting relationship that should be happening before 18. And you're our guinea pig, so we've done the best we can on it. But I'm really proud of you. You're an awesome daughter, and I'm going to wrap this up just by praying for you and for those who are still listening to the end, asking you to pray for my daughter Brooklyn as well. She heads into a weird time to beginning adulthood. It's a weird time to begin anything, but we don't even know church-wise what we're doing in 3 weeks, and we got all of these graduates who are supposed to make these major steps, and they don't even know if their schools are going to be open. They don't know much of anything. So let's pray. Lord, thank you so much for this conversation. It's warming to my heart. I pray that it's encouraging to moms and dads listening, that you will use significant trauma to mold and shape each of us and our kids to be like Jesus, and also that we don't have to have all the answers, and we don't have to panic at any particular spot or stage that our kids are in. And Lord, I pray as well for Brooklyn as she looks down the road, and she tries to put feet to her faith. God, I pray that you would guide her path and you would direct her path, then all our ways she would acknowledge you, and you would direct her path, Lord Jesus. Thank you that we have one another. Thank you for the gift of life, and we love you. We pray in Jesus' name. Hey, thank you for coming today, Brooklyn. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Love you very much.
Love you. Hey, thank you so much for listening today. I pray it was an encouragement to you. And if it was, I bet it would be encouraging to somebody that you care about. And so I would ask that you specifically share this episode with somebody that you love. You can throw it on social media if you want, but I love direct shares with friends. Also, if you're more interested in Let's Parent on Purpose, if you go to letsparentonpurpose.com, I've got a whole archive of past podcast issues, as well as blogs and articles and resources to help you. You can get my Fun Family Conversations book there. And if Let's Parent on Purpose has been a specific help to you, not only can you subscribe to the podcast, but you can become a part of the Patreon support team. Those are the ones that help make this go out to as many people around the world as possible. So you can find out about that as well at letsparentonpurpose.com. This is Jay Holland, once again thanking you for listening, reminding you that parenting is a marathon and not a sprint. Talk to you soon.